Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video, we're going to learn the 2 to 5 player game AI Space Puzzle, designed by Katarzyna Chow, Sylwia Smolinska, Wojciech Wiśniewski, and Mateusz Woski, and published by Portal Games, who helped sponsor this video. When they installed the onboard AI, they assured you it would make space travel easy. But now your ship is damaged, and so is the AI. It can still tell you how to complete the emergency repairs, but its instructions are all coming out in a strange code. You'll need to decipher its messages and fix the ship before it blows up. So join me at the table and let's learn how to play. To set up, pick someone to take on the role of the AI and have them sit on one side of the table, putting this screen in front of themselves. They'll use this to keep certain information hidden, so it helps if the rest of the players, which we'll refer to as the astronauts, sit on the other side of the table. Now find the 16 cards with this back, give them a good shuffle, and deal them into a random face-up 4x4 grid of 16 cards, which represents the rooms of the ship and together are known as the ship's map. These are known as the double-sided final combination cards. Be sure to separate and return to the box the 3 showing yellow and black emergency lines on their sides. These are crisis versions that are used when you want a greater challenge, and we'll learn more about those later. The AI player shuffles the rest and then takes one randomly, flipped to either side, keeping it secret behind their screen and rotated as they like, as long as its sides are parallel to the outline of the larger ship map layout. All the leftover final combination cards are then returned unseen back to the box. If the AI player prefers, they can put their card into this included stand, but for this video, we'll leave the card laying down. Now assemble the astronaut key panel using these pieces and following the instructions found on the back of this part. It will look like this when you're done. These purple cubes are known as neutral markers, and you now add one to each of the check marks found here on this board, so it looks like this when you're done. The players now choose a scenario to try from this book. Each is given its own page and is replayable, and you can complete them in any order, but they are arranged by difficulty. Gray bannered ones represent tutorial scenarios, which are good to try when you're just learning. Green are easy, yellow are difficult, and red are critically difficult. There are 40 unique scenarios in this book, and we'll pick the first of the tutorial scenarios to set up. The symbol and value here indicate how many rounds the scenario will last. 5 in this case. To show this, add one of the leftover neutral markers to that value on the key panel. This leftover marker is just a replacement in case you lose one, so we'll return it to the box. These other symbols and values within the banner we'll learn more about later. For now, you'll want to collect all of the tokens that match the ones that are colored in on this table. Any that are grayed out, like these, will not be used in this scenario and can be returned to the box as I've done here. The rest are then given to the AI player. Now put these astronaut pawns and colored markers within reach of the astronaut players. Finally, always be sure to check any of the special instructions for your scenario, which will be found here. In this case, the AI player is told to check the 4 colored squares that are showing on their final combination card. Now again, they would do this in secret where the other players couldn't see. When checking, they don't include this X space. So in our case, they'd see green, yellow, red, and white. They now return any pieces that aren't that color back to the box. Some scenarios will make use of these dice. If so, they'll show a die symbol in this area. Our scenario doesn't, so these dice won't be used and should be returned to the box. And that's the setup. In AI Space Puzzle, the person who has taken on the role of the AI knows what the astronauts need to do to save the ship, which is represented by the symbols they have here on their hidden final combination card. But their programming is damaged, so they only have limited ways to communicate, which are represented by these cardboard tokens. They'll use and arrange these to try to help the astronauts repair the ship before it blows up. Remember, the AI player will keep this card hidden from the other players, but I just want to show you that the 16 spaces found on the final combination card represent the 16 card layout of the ship. So this space is here, this space is here, this space is here, and so on. For this reason, it's very important that once the game starts, the AI player does not accidentally rotate their card. They have to keep it in the exact same orientation that they began with. In this scenario, the final combination card tells the AI player two very important things. First, the colored spaces represent the cards of the ship map, where these matching colored astronauts need to go. For example, this green astronaut needs to go here, this yellow astronaut needs to go here, and the white and red ones go here and here. The AI player knows this, but they can't put these pieces onto the ship themselves. They're an AI. You can imagine they don't have any hands. They need to give the astronaut players clues using these tokens so that the astronaut players can figure out where to put the astronaut pieces. Now we'll see how clues are given in a moment, but there is one other job for the players. The symbols you see on the colored spaces represent these 4 different keys on the panel here. To win, the right astronaut will need to have the right key. For example, the green astronaut needs to have this key, and to show this, the matching colored marker needs to be put here. In a similar way, the white astronaut would need to have this key, and so on. In other words, for the players to win, they need to have the astronaut markers on these spaces of the ship and the matching colored markers beside the related keys. You might have noticed you'll also find die values within the colored spaces, as well as a blue X in one of the other spaces. These are only used if the scenario you are playing requires them. Otherwise, ignore those symbols, as we'll be doing here. I should also quickly point out that each color in the game has its own related pattern shown here in the rulebook in case anyone at the table has trouble distinguishing colors. For example, green is represented by this pattern, which you'll find shown on one side of that astronaut's piece. Okay, with that rough understanding of what we're trying to do, let's see how we do it. The game is played over a series of rounds, and each round is divided into 2 phases, starting with an AI phase. The AI player looks at the value shown here on the scenario's banner. This is the maximum number of tokens they can use to give clues during this phase. They now look at their tokens and, in this case, pick up to 5 of them to arrange behind their screen in any way they like. They can rotate pieces and overlap them and space them out as they want, as long as they're all face up and all of the ones they choose fit behind their screen. Also, just so it's clear, you can never place your screen so it overlaps the ship cards themselves. I'm going to play as the AI and arrange 5 tokens behind my screen to prepare an example. Once the tokens are arranged the way the AI player wants, they then take the screen away to show the message they've prepared for the astronauts. Now you have to be careful. You can't show them your final combination card. So I actually have mine flipped over to the opposite side so they can't see the real information. In our case, this is the way I arranged the 5 tokens I chose, hoping to provide some useful information to the astronauts. Once the screen has been removed, the AI player may not change or move the tokens that formed their message. I also think it's a good idea for them to put any unused tokens into a face-down stack so those don't accidentally suggest something to the players. And be aware, the AI player is not allowed to say anything during the game. I mean, you can ask for a slice of pizza, but you can't hint or suggest anything about the clues you're provided. And this includes making gestures or facial expressions. You're a broken AI. You need to save your energy. After the AI has revealed their clues, it's time for the astronaut phase, where the rest of the players will work together to try to interpret the AI's message. The astronaut players can talk as much as they want. In fact, it can be helpful for the AI to hear what they're thinking. They just can't talk to the AI or ask the AI player questions. After some discussion, the astronauts will then get to perform a number of actions equal to the values shown here with this icon. So 3 in this case, though they can perform fewer if they want. The astronauts can resolve each of their actions in one of 4 different ways. And they can pick the same option more than once, as long as they don't perform more actions than the maximum that they're allowed for the scenario. So let's go through each of the 4 types of actions together. One option is to move an astronaut not already on the ship to any room card. And there's no limit to how many astronauts can be in the same room, and where you put them within a room doesn't matter. Of course, moving a second astronaut would require a second action. The rooms have different printed icons, and the players should know which of these icons might be within a room, so feel free to pick a piece up or move it around within the space if you need to check. Another way to use an action is to move an astronaut already on the ship to any other room. So if it had been here, I could move it to here. A third option is to remove any astronaut on the ship back to the table. There is a fourth action option, but it's only available in scenarios that use the dice, so we'll discuss that action later. Now though, I'm going to pretend that I'm an astronaut along with you, and we'll look at the clues the AI gave us and see what actions as astronauts we might want to perform. Now remember, the AI player was free to arrange these tokens in any way they wanted, so even their positions relative to each other might be a clue. We see that this token, the green one, is stacked on top of these other two. That could mean they all relate to the same space. Green might mean the green astronaut, so what does a telescope and battery symbol mean? Looking at the room grid, we see there's one spot that shows only a telescope and battery. So maybe this means the green astronaut is meant to go here. But remember, the AI could only use 5 tokens in their clue. So these tokens could also apply to this room, and maybe they just didn't feel the need to also use one of their tokens to represent this engine symbol. That's possible, but if we do assume that the green astronaut goes here, then maybe the yellow one is meant to go here, since this yellow clue is close to green, but diagonally down from it in a similar way that this space is. So we might use one of our actions to move the green astronaut here, and another action to move the yellow astronaut here. Next, you'll notice the yellow color clue also has this token stacked under it, which represents one of the keys. Remember, the astronauts also have to figure out which key each astronaut piece needs to have by putting the matching astronaut color into the related key space on this board. During the astronaut's phase, they can make any number of adjustments to this panel as they like, as often as they like, for free. It doesn't use up any of their actions. Just be aware these color and neutral tokens that we see on the board can never be put onto the ship's cards. They're only used with this panel. So let's take a look at how this panel works. During the game, any number of markers of any color can be within a section, but to win, players will need to have a single correct astronaut color assigned to each key. These markers are double-sided, and astronauts should put this side face up when assigned to a key to indicate that they're not sure if this color belongs with this key. They instead flip it over to this side when they think that they are sure they have the color assigned correctly. These purple cubes are used to help remind the astronauts of other information. For example, if they believe they know where the key belongs on the ship, they can slide the cube by this icon so that the check mark is revealed. If they're still not sure, then they would keep this here. The other indicator is only used when the dice are involved in a scenario, so we can ignore this for now, but we'll discuss it later. Remember, the astronauts can and should speak openly about their theories and decide as a group how to use the key panel, assign components, and spend actions. But they cannot suggest ideas to the AI player. For example, an astronaut couldn't say out loud, "You know what would be helpful? If the AI player would just put a green token on the table for their next clue, we would then assume from that all of our assumptions about the green astronaut are correct." Astronaut players can talk about their assumptions, but they can't tell or hint at the AI about what they want them to do. In our example, we'll assume the players used 2 actions to move astronauts to these spaces and made some adjustments on the key panel, which is free. That means they have a third action left over. Sometimes players will have done everything they can imagine to do with the information they have, but they still have leftover actions and don't feel that they can make an informed decision. Well, that's okay. Make an uninformed one. As a general rule, astronauts should use all of their actions. For example, they could decide to put an astronaut here and just hope they guessed right. It can't hurt to try. Either way, once the astronauts have taken as many actions as they can or wish to, they end the round by lowering the value of the round marker here by 1. This indicates to the AI player that it's time to start a new round by putting their screen back exactly where it had been, and to begin a new AI phase by creating a new clue however they like with their tokens. Between rounds, astronauts won't be told whether or not their actions were accurate. It will be up to the AI to provide new clues to help communicate if the astronauts are on the right track. For example, during the next round, the AI might have shared this message. They assigned a check mark to the color green, so we might assume that that means we made the correct assumption about the green astronaut piece, and maybe even the yellow one, since the check mark is also covering where they had put the yellow token in the previous clue. Now, they could have used a yellow token here as part of their clue to be extra clear, but remember, they can only use 5 tokens in their clues in this scenario, so maybe they didn't want to waste one of their tokens and hoped the astronauts would get their intention. Either way, the astronauts will now spend actions and adjust the key panel based on the new information. And rounds will continue like this until the game ends in one of 2 possible ways. One way is if this marker reaches the hourglass space at the end of a round. In that situation, the AI player shows their final combination card. If the astronaut pieces on the room cards and markers on the key panel completely match it, and if the scenario's special rules have all been followed, everyone wins. If any of the requirements haven't been met, everyone loses. So one way for the game to end is for the players to complete the final round. However, the game can instead end before this. If at the end of an astronaut phase, the astronaut players believe they have all of the pieces on the required rooms and the correct single color marker on each color panel, they can choose to move the round marker directly to the final hourglass space. The AI player must now reveal the final combination card, and as before, if the players have created a perfect match on the room cards and key panel based on the final combination card requirements and any of the scenario's special rules, the players all win. Otherwise, they all lose. With that understood, I want to help prepare you for later scenarios by explaining how the dice work in the game. If the scenario shows this die symbol in its banner here, that means you'll be using the dice, so you should get those out during the setup. It also means that in addition to placing the astronauts in the correct rooms, they'll also need a die in their space set to the correct value. The correct value is shown within the astronaut's space on the final combination card. For example, on this one, the green astronaut needs to be in this space, with its green die set to the side showing 5 dots. The yellow astronaut would need to be in this space of the ship with their die set to the side showing 3 dots, and so on. Whenever you use an action to move an astronaut that's on the table over to a room card, if the scenario includes the use of dice, always move its matching die with it set to the value 1 side, which is the side that shows a question mark and 1 dot. When taking actions in scenarios where dice are involved, you now have a new option. As an action, you can change the value of a die that's in a ship room to any number. So if I thought this value should be a 4, as an action, I could change it like this. When you move an astronaut from one room to another, its die comes with it set to whatever value it currently has. And if you use an action to remove an astronaut from the ship, its die leaves with it. And if you later use an action to put the astronaut back onto the ship, its value resets to 1. When dice are included in the scenario, the astronaut players can now use this area of the key panel to indicate if they are unsure of what value a die should be, or when they are confident. And that's how the dice are used in the game. You'll find these introduced in later scenarios, and as I mentioned, there are 40 different scenarios in the box, but each one can be replayed several times, as the AI player will collect a random final combination card each time, creating new layouts. And new AI players will often come up with new strategies for giving clues. You'll also find that because the scenarios only allow you to use certain tokens each time, the AI player will be forced to come up with new approaches from game to game. If you want an additional challenge while playing, have the AI player mix up and select one of these crisis final combination cards that have emergency stripes in place of a regular one. These are especially difficult to complete. For example, sometimes having two astronauts that will have to go into the same space. At the back of the scenario book, you'll also find two additional ways to play. One option is to include a time limit where the astronaut phase will always last exactly 45 seconds. Any actions not used by then are lost. There's also a saboteur mode that uses these cards. You need at least 3 astronaut players, and then you take as many of these as the number of astronaut players, ensuring that at least one of them is the red saboteur card. So if we had 3 players, we'd remove one of these. Shuffle them face down and then deal 1 to each person. Every player secretly examines their own card but must not show it to anyone else. The game is otherwise played the same way, but the player who is dealt the red saboteur card only wins if the players fail the scenario. This means they'll be trying to hide the fact that they're the saboteur while also trying to steer the players in the wrong direction. I should also mention the game comes with this crisis token, which has no specific use currently, but has been included for possible use in future scenarios that may get released later. Otherwise, that's everything you need to know to play AI Space Puzzle. If you have any questions about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get a notification anytime we post a new video. And if you'd like to support us directly, you can join our Patreon team, which I'll have linked below. But until next time, thanks for watching.